I've been with my husband for 8 years. When I met him, he had 2 children. I had never previously dated a man with children, but I quickly accepted them and was always very involved when they had visits with us, which wasn't often, because their mom became extremely jealous I was in the picture, and still is. Mind you, she also took my husband to court for support 2 months after we got together. The children were 3 and 7 at this point. He had been helping with money out of every paycheck, so the only reason we can surmise from this is that she was being spiteful. She also began brainwashing them terribly against us, and this is when it began that she would withhold them. Time went by, and my husband was able to get the support lowered from the insane amount it was originally ordered at. She would never show up to court to fight his appeals. Judge grew tired of it, could see my husband was a good father and hard worker, and also stated it wasn't fair the mom didn't work, by choice, and lived with her mom on welfare. Meanwhile, husband was scraping to pay bills and put himself through school. That was the one shining light of justice in all of this. Despite all the problems, time went by and things got somewhat better. For a while, she would at least uphold visitations, and I would consider being close with them as their soon-to-be stepmom. It came out one night while husband and I went out for a date night and had a bit too much to drink, that he didn't think the children were his. I questioned further, because as far as I had known, they were. They looked somewhat like him, or so I thought. She also told them all along they were his. Here's where it gets interesting. It was revealed to me that their mother had slept with my husband's twin brother, and not just a one-time thing. Apparently, it had been going on for some time. She confirmed this in a later text, and at this point, I'm in full shock. The second child, daughter, my husband then admitted almost couldn't logistically be his, because based on the timing of her due date, he was serving a brief jail sentence for DUI. He was young and dumb at the time, and has never otherwise been in trouble with the law. Just want to throw this out there. He actually didn't even know about the baby until the mother was about 2 months along, at which point she showed up to his house to drop off their son and stated she was pregnant with his child. They weren't together at this point. I'm convinced this pregnancy was an attempt to manipulate him into getting back together. He told her he absolutely did not want another child. She told him she was getting an A, went MIA for a few months, having her mom handle drop-offs of her son to and from his house, and then finally shows up for drop-off and says, "By the way, I'm still pregnant." As if that wasn't horrible enough, it was later discovered she was also still cheating with his twin at this point. Now, obviously, had he known about her sleeping around so much, especially with his twin brother, and also other men, he would have never acknowledged paternity for the support. The kicker, she also didn't give her daughter, second child, his last name. But being that he did sign it, he stuck. Here's where the real issue comes to play. She actually told a mutual friend of theirs that she's pretty certain his twin is their dad, that she only pinned them on my husband because she loved him. This friend then told my husband. She now never admits to this. Ever since all of this came to light, he is having a rough time, understandably. The mom has started withholding off and on again. This started because she was angry when we found out about her statement to friend about them not being hers and questioned her on it. She doesn't want to discuss it, and therefore this is her way of acting out, I suppose. Personally, I will say since this, I also have a hard time feeling the same way about them. I want answers. My husband says in his heart he knows they aren't his. They have a crazy strong bond with their uncle, supposed father, and always have. They also look just like him. Husband and him are paternal twins. My husband still tries his damnedest to have a relationship with them, despite all of the drama with their mother and the paternity issue. But she's made our lives a living hell, and I can't forgive her. We now have a child of our own, and now more than ever, I need to know if they are his siblings, or in fact, her cousins. His twin knows the possibility, but is married and has a child with his wife, and to this day, no one has ever told her. His mom and some other family know too. His twin is the golden child, and his wife is the favorite daughter-in-law. Everyone's so afraid to step on toes at the cost of their happiness and comfortability. It's sickening. His mom at least has pushed for a paternity test as well, but my husband is reluctant to do it. Reason being, he doesn't want to ruin his brother's marriage over this. He feels that since he took responsibility and raised them, it's just his burden to carry. He's worried the kids will also be screwed up either way. They are now 10 and 14, to which I say, what about our marriage and our child together? Is it fair for me to live in this arrangement forever? To have our daughter grow up confused? I don't feel it is. I'm also wondering why the hell his twin feels no guilt, knowing he slept with her, not to bring this to light once and for all either. This has all led to me having a huge amount of resentment for his twin, the trailer trash mom, and the kids. Am I crazy? Am I wrong? I don't know how long I can keep up this facade. Honestly, I think the absolute most important thing is to consider what's best for all kids involved. It sounds like your husband legitimately loves the kids, whether or not they are biologically his. I think you need to talk to your partner about what he wants with them, relationship-wise, and be really open to what he wants. It really is up to him in the end. Please don't get hung up on feeling like he's saddled with this if he doesn't actually feel this way. None of this drama is the kids' fault, and they probably need all the love they can get based on how their mom sounds. I think you need to talk to your husband. Try to convince him that a paternity test is essential. It's not okay for him to be fine paying for kids that aren't his, making his money stretch while his brother lives happily in bliss. Who cares if it rocks his brother's boat? It's rocked yours and your husband's lives for long enough. You and your partner can't take responsibility for how his brother and his wife deal with it. His ex sounds like a crazy attention seeker, and I feel sorry that his kids have a mom like this. If he gets a paternity test and they are not his kids, your husband is not ruining the twins' marriage. The twin ruined his own marriage by ducking your husband's ex-wife. That is in no way anyone's fault other than the two people who were cheating on their spouses. My parents are together since their early 20s. My mom is 58 and my dad is 61. They have 2 children, me, 32 female, and my brother, 18. Like every relationship, they had some ups and downs, but overall, I would say they were really happy. About 22 years ago, my mom went on a vacation to Greece alone. My parents were going through a pretty rough patch that time. She met a guy there and had an affair that lasted a couple of days. She never told anyone, except me, but after a long time when I was in my late 20s. She said she feels ashamed about it, even after such a long time. She said she regrets it and never did anything with anyone else and has been loyal to my father ever since. I believe her. About 3 months ago, my father was cleaning their old garage, and he found some old letter and photo from that guy. I have no idea why my mom kept it, but she forgot about it and left it there. He confronted her, and she admitted to the affair. My dad went completely mad. He called her a W and other insults, and their whole relationship is a lie, and even said that me and my brother may not even be his. He suspects her of cheating the entire relationship and doesn't trust her anymore. They had a huge fight, and he kicked her out of their house. I understand his frustration, but I don't understand why he would throw everything away like this. My mom made a terrible mistake, but it was a long time ago, and she has been nothing but a devoted mother and partner ever since. She even gave up her dream job and career so he could pursue his, because his job required us to travel a lot. The problem is, my parents never married. He made all the money, and she was a stay-at-home mom. Eventually, my dad became pretty successful, and my parents own a very nice home and a couple of cars, but everything is legally owned by my dad only. Right now, my mom is staying with me and my husband, because she has nowhere else to go. She never really had a job in her life, so she has little to no retirement. They were planning to travel the world after my dad retires, but he won't even talk to Mom anymore. He literally kicked her on the street. I understand he may not want to be with her anymore, but he just can't leave her homeless at almost 60 years old. She raised his children, took care of his home her whole life, and has nothing. He could comfortably afford to at least rent her out an apartment, but he won't. I'm pretty desperate and don't know what to do. How can I talk some sense into my dad? Edit. My parents have been using that garage as a storage unit for a long time. They traveled a lot together, and they love to buy souvenirs and bring them home. The letter was in an envelope, and it was a goodbye note saying how nice it was meeting her and wishing her the best in life. The photo next to it was a picture of them on a beach. She says he gave her the envelope personally on the last day when she was leaving, and she put it next to the other stuff and forgot about it. Edit 2. We already talked to a lawyer. We live in Czech Republic, and by our law, she is entitled to nothing. They never married, and everything is legally owned by him. She also can't get any retirement from state, because in order to get any, you need to work certain time. To your mom, this happened 22 years ago. To your dad, this just happened. All the emotions are hitting him. No, she shouldn't be left with nothing at all, but I don't know laws in your country. Also, you saying it happened ages ago. Yes, she told you about it later, but before your dad found out, so you have also had time to reconcile it. OP, your dad needs to grieve, and you can't blame him. It may have been 20 years ago for you and your mom, but it is fresh and new to him. He has been betrayed. His relationship is not what he thought it was. He will need time. Your mother put herself in this position by having an affair and by allowing him to have so much control over their assets. Contact an attorney so she knows what her options are. Don't blame your dad for his reaction and try to see this for what it is. She is not his mother. She is his wife and she broke his trust. Support them both in the best way that you can. Maybe one day they will find their way back to each other. Maybe not. In situations like this, it's either a reconcile or a scorched earth approach. Your dad went the scorched earth way. He is entitled to it. Your mom's past caught up with her. You want him to show compassion because that is your mom. Would you do the same to your husband in the same situation? Can't know how someone mentally and emotionally handles something like this until you lived it yourself. Last year, I discovered that my brother-in-law was having an affair. He had gone to work one day and just never came home. He maintained semi-regular contact with his wife and mother and gave multiple excuses as to where he was, who he was with, and what he was doing. There were times we didn't know if he was dead or alive. The discovery was a pretty bizarre sequence of Google searches and Facebook stalking that led me to someone who had a connection to him. I ended up being given the name and phone number of a woman who he'd been seeing for 6 or 7 months at that point, a month longer than he'd been gone. The other woman reached out to me, and I told her everything. After we spoke, and I assured her that the family would be supporting his journey to bettering his mental health, and that she did not have to stay by his side after he lied to her for months. I had to tell my mother-in-law and sister-in-law about the affair. My brother-in-law was kicked out of the other woman's house and went to his parents' house. I don't know how long he was there. Their parents live out of town, and I know that a couple weeks after this, he was back in town. We were told that he was staying with a friend, and then that he was staying in a long-term hotel. Both ended up being untrue. On Christmas, it was accidentally revealed by my father-in-law that my brother-in-law was back with the other woman, and the rest of the family was accepting her with open arms. She even had a stocking. My brother-in-law and his wife were together for almost a decade. She had seemingly very close relationship with the entire family. Before the truth of the affair had been revealed, the family was extremely supportive of her. But now, before the divorce has even been finalized, they're acting like she never existed and are accepting the other woman as a part of the family now. They're brushing off all of my brother-in-law's aggressive, neglectful, deceitful, and manipulative behavior as just symptoms of his mental illness and refuse to acknowledge that he has any accountability or responsibility in the entire situation. They've cut contact with our sister-in-law as well, with no warning, no goodbyes, no closure. My husband and I have no intention of doing so. For additional context, my sister-in-law is one of my best friends and is the one who introduced me to my husband in the first place. My husband is a great deal younger than his brother and has known our sister-in-law since he was barely a teenager. He grew extremely close to her over the years and considers her to be his big sister. He and I are also the only family that still live in the same town as his brother and our sister-in-law. We were the ones who supported her last year in his absence, with chores, errands, taking care of their pets, car repairs, etc., as well as being her main emotional support system. We were the only people in her life who could understand the conflicted feelings she had towards her husband. We were the only ones with love for both sides. Despite being angry and hurt and confused, we did and do still care about his safety and his mental health. But we care about hers too, and we fully acknowledge the damage he did to her. So, considering how close my husband and I are to her, replacing her so quickly with her husband's mistress feels wrong. It feels like a betrayal to her. She was family, blood or not. But are we wrong to not want to welcome the other woman into the family? Are we sticking our nose where it doesn't belong? Should we just be staying in our lane? As far as we are concerned, the fact that the other woman took him back after finding out he was married makes her a homewrecker. I don't have any respect for this woman anymore. But the rest of my in-laws' ability to act like nothing is wrong is making me feel like I'm crazy or something. Keep your contact with her to only at your in-laws' house. Be there for your sister-in-law. Get her a damn good lawyer and clean him out. Give her the match that lights the fire. Also, watch your back with the in-laws. It shows how they will treat you if it ever happens to you. I guess my question is, what are you wanting to do about this? I don't like telling people their feelings are wrong, and I'm not suggesting that your feelings are wrong. You can be angry, hurt, whatever. What I'm suggesting is if you want brother-in-law in your life, you're going to have to welcome his new significant other into the family. You don't have to like her. You don't have to be best friends, but you do have to be kind and respectful. Or not. But if you choose not, you can't make that choice for everyone else, you know? You have to make your choice and deal with the fallout. I mean, if you don't want to be around this woman, you're choosing to not be around your brother-in-law and potentially the family. When you try to force others to choose, you're going to find yourself on the outside looking in. That's so sad. You aren't wrong to not welcome her. She took him back knowing the part she played in all of this, and that he's a cheater. She doesn't deserve punishment, but she also doesn't deserve to be welcomed, nor does he. I married my wife 8 years ago, and at the time we both had a child from a previous situation, and we made a pact together that we would adopt each other's children and love them as though they were our own. We had 2 more biological kids together. I won't go into details, but stepdaughter is the product of something not so pleasant that caused her mom to be estranged. So my side of the family is the only normal family that my stepdaughter has ever had. My sisters are super supportive and love their niece and made sure to include her in anything that involves my biological kids. However, my dad has been toxic and even told me that I don't need to marry a woman that had a child already, even when I already had a child. On top of that, he once secretly DNA tested my oldest son and let me know about it after the fact that I was in the clear. Well, I have explained to him that stepdaughter was my daughter in all ways except biology. But my dad has constantly pushed against this by buying my biological kids nicer presents, not sending gifts on her birthday, etc. At this point, my stepdaughter is very well aware of my parents' attitude toward her, and I've apologized often and tried to make it up to her. I thought my parents finally got it, because they have stopped being exclusive of her, but just this last week they did it again, but worse. They got everyone together in our family on Zoom, and my dad announced that he and mom had come into some money, and they would be starting a college fund that would pay for more than just tuition for all of their grandkids. I was shocked at first, because my sisters have a lot of kids between the 2 of them, and I had 4 of my own. After the excitement wore off for a few minutes, I came to my senses and asked my dad if he's sure he means all of his grandkids, and he assured me that he did. Well, I go to the bank with him just to sign a few documents for the accounts to be set up, and I see sure as ever that my stepdaughter has no paperwork for her account. My dad shrugged and said it was his money and he wanted to help his grandkids. I ended up tearing up the paperwork and telling him that we didn't need any of his money. I am home now, and I realize that I may have made a mistake, as I might have deprived my 3 kids of a head start in life for the sake of making things fair for their sister. I also realized that my wife and I could have just put money away for stepdaughter and matched the other kids' accounts as best as possible. But now I am too angry and proud to go back and ask my dad for the money. Am I the a-hole here? Everyone sucks here, because you are ducking over your biological kids. Hell, if he was paying for the college funds, you can put your money towards the stepdaughter and she will have a good college fund. Bio kids get college fund from him. You college fund for stepkid. Everyone has a college fund in the end. Now you got 0 college funds. Everyone is screwed now. Free money is free money. College is so expensive. This is a really difficult one to call, but I'm going to have to say you're the a-hole. It's his estate. He can divide it and distribute it as he pleases. You could have allowed them to have the money and then just focused your own efforts on your stepdaughter. If your kids now have to take on student loans because you did this, then you have done a real disservice to your family. Not the a-hole. Clearly your dad is. But you have deprived your other children. So I think if it was possible, just matching for your other daughter yourselves would have been a better solution. I wouldn't associate with your parents anymore anyway. Not only did he do this, but he also assured you that it was for all the grandkids, knowing exactly what you meant. So he was obviously getting some kind of jollies on not telling you and seeing your reaction when you see. Sick. My female 26, twin brother, male 26, and I are super close. We went to the same college, and I also became very close with his girlfriend, female 28. They've been dating for around 6 years, and my brother has told me that they've discussed marriage and kids, but we're waiting for him to finish his master's degree. Around a year ago, his girlfriend called me for some advice. She told me that she was pregnant, but didn't think that she wanted to have the baby. She wanted my opinion on how he would take it, as they have discussed having kids. We're both pro-choice, but that said, my brother was super supportive when I had my daughter, female 3. Her dad split before she was born. He has been a great uncle, always talking about how he can't wait to have kids of his own, etc. I told her that it could be a deal breaker for him, but she had to tell him to find out. She said she would be telling him and also asked that I keep it to myself. He never brought it up with me, and there was no baby, so I assumed he was working it through on his own. He's like that sometimes. My brother asked for help picking out a ring, and I offered to let him use our great-grandmother's ring to propose. It was left to me. We agreed he would come for a visit to pick it up just before he was going to ask her. He came over last weekend to pick it up. He arranged for some of my friends to take me out for a girls' night, and he babysat, giving me a much-needed break as a small thank you. When I got home, I was feeling sentimental, so I started telling him how happy our Nana would have been that he's getting married, how he's going to be a great dad, and how proud of him I am that they were able to move past their trouble in the last year, etc. He didn't react at all. We just carried on talking until I went to bed. The next morning was completely normal. He made breakfast for us, took the ring, and said his goodbyes. Yesterday, he called me in tears. He had picked up on what I said and asked his girlfriend about it. He said at first she wouldn't tell him, but eventually told him the whole story. He gave it some time, but decided he couldn't marry her, so he broke things off. He said it was about how she could keep something so important from him that he didn't think he could trust her ever again. He also told me that he was a little hurt that I didn't tell him at the time, but he understood that I thought he knew. Shortly after that, I started to get messages from his girlfriend and a couple of college friends, saying I'm an a-hole for telling him and ruining her life. I feel bad that they broke up, and I kind of feel like it's my fault. I legitimately thought she had told him, and I was expressing pride that I thought he had grown to accept her reasons or feelings in addition to his own. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. She never should have told you or asked for your advice without already deciding she would talk to him. In fact, because you're his twin and not just her friend, she never should have told you before telling him. It's a blow, yeah, and it's hard, and this was a horrible way for him to find out. But this isn't on you. Not the a-hole. You didn't tattle. You weren't malicious. You congratulated your brother for getting over a serious difficulty in his relationship and moving on to the next phase, because that was what you thought had happened. Meanwhile, she kept a big secret in a committed relationship, and she was willing to go into marriage with that secret, even after the two of you agreed that she wouldn't keep it from him. She should never have expected you to keep a secret that big from your brother indefinitely, your twin brother at that. So, from what I'm reading, she terminated without telling him. And now she's upset because he's upset over not even knowing she was carrying his flesh and blood? Not the a-hole. The ex sounds so unreasonable. My 27 female sister, 31 female, got divorced from her husband recently. They had been separated for 2 years and just had the divorce finalized. We recently found out that the ex, 35 male, is now engaged to our 19-year-old first cousin, Annie, my mom's sister's daughter. The age difference is just wrong, especially when Annie was 14 when my sister got married. The fact that she initiated contact with my sister's ex after they separated because she had a crush on him was also gross. Since we found out, we went no contact with their whole family, who had all begun texting us asking us to give our blessing, to be part of the celebrations, and to accept what was happening. We continued to ignore them, but as they are family, they showed up to extended family events and publicly asked my mom and sister to forgive them. My mom and sister basically said, "Be happy, live your life. We accept this is happening, and we just all need to move on." But for me, I couldn't let it go so easily. So when I bumped into my aunt and cousin at another event, they jumped forward to hug me, and I took a step back, and then asked them not to feel so familiar with me. They followed me around until I raised my voice and said, "If I had done the same as you would have never forgiven us. So why is it our responsibility to make you feel better about what you've done? You've made sure that we will never be rid of that man, and he'll be there for every family event. So no, I won't pretend everything is okay." I walked off, and while I don't take back my words, my sister did say to me that I should have just said nothing and let it go. That aunt has now told many people how upset she is, and I'm starting to feel bad about my explosion. Was I the a-hole for publicly calling them out like that, especially when my sister has taken such a calm approach to it all? Huge not the a-hole. Your sister took the high road, and I congratulate her for it. But as for the sister in this, I wish I had an award to give you for calling out their crap. You are in no way wrong. You did what your sister and mom couldn't do, and now they have to live with the reality and shame of what their daughter did. Hope he doesn't hurt her too much before they see his true colors. Keep your head high, and be proud of having your sister's back. Not the a-hole. You said the truth. They just don't like hearing it. It's not you or your family's job to ease their guilty conscience, and that's what they were all looking for. I hate when family are made to feel like they need to accept horrible behavior just because they are family. It's worse, And I don't know why your aunt would be okay with this. I'm sure they will find out firsthand, though, as your sister pointed out. Not the a-hole. What the heck is wrong with your aunt that she doesn't think her 17-year-old daughter dating a newly divorced 33-year-old is just freaking wrong? And wants your blessing? She should be worried, especially if all the close women in her family are saying he's horrible. Why doesn't she heed that advice? She must know and wants you to soothe her fears because she can't do anything about it. Also, is your sister's ex doing this just to punish your sister? Is he playing the long game? You'll never be rid of me and you can see me with your cousin? Like, isn't this just more evidence he's an awful man to your aunt and cousin? Honestly, it needed to be said. So much more needs to be said. If you don't say it, that's fine, but yeah, you are not an a-hole. I don't know what to do. My ex-husband and I split 12 years ago. He was since remarried to a woman 10 years younger. For the early part of my daughter's life, he didn't have a very good job and didn't have to pay a lot of child support. So we were pretty broke and had to live with family. Things have gotten better over the last 5 years, and my daughter was finally happy and secure. This weekend, he decided to take his new wife on a trip and asked my daughter to feed their dogs and birds. While she was there, she found ovulation tests, pregnancy tests, and pregnancy and parenting books and magazines. My daughter had no idea they were planning this and is extremely upset. When I contacted her dad, he basically told me it wasn't either of our business. And he even told me he was mad that our daughter was snooping through their house and personal business. This is a house she grew up in, by the way. My daughter doesn't even want to see or talk to her dad at this point. She is so upset that he basically replaced us with a woman who is 10 years older than her and now is trying to start a new family without giving her any warning or asking how she would feel. I don't know how to help her or help mend this relationship, as she obviously needs her dad and his support, but I don't want her to also feel like she isn't allowed to be upset. Any advice would be great. Reading between the lines here, I think you and your daughter need to move forward from the divorce. You got divorced 12 years ago. You said in a comment your ex met his current wife 4 years ago. She is so upset that he basically replaced us with a woman who is 10 years older than her. The age thing is a separate issue, but where is this replacement language coming from? Is it you? You and her father haven't been together for a long time, and she's 19. She's not a little girl who might be confused about how people's relationships change. I would encourage your daughter to try to process her feelings in a healthy way. Maybe therapy if she's open to it. You too, if you still view this situation as you getting replaced by a new woman. Also, she most definitely did snoop through the house. Where exactly do you think people keep ovulation kits? So encouraging her to admit that and apologize for it might be a good first step. It's easy to see that you are feeding your kids anxiety over this. How about being a mother and telling her that her dad will always love her? She won't be replaced, and you're sure that he'll talk to her when there's something to announce. Instead, you go all crazy ex. His S-life is not your business or your kid's business. It's nuts that you called him on his trip to yell about this. Dramatic much? Why could this not wait until he returned? You can validate your daughter's emotions. Yes, it is upsetting to feel replaced. Yes, it is upsetting to find out something like that from seeing things you weren't supposed to see. But that doesn't mean that her point of view is the only correct one. It is none of her business if they're trying for a baby right now, any more than the rest of their S-life is her business. No one needs to ask their children, especially adult children who don't live with them, if they're allowed to have another child. And it's generally the norm to wait until you're actually pregnant and past the very early stages of pregnancy before sharing the news with anyone. Right now, this is only the business of her dad and his wife. She's allowed to be upset, and if she needs some space from him right now, she's allowed to take that. She is 19, and her relationship with her dad is now up to her to maintain if she wants to. So don't interfere too much. Let her take this opportunity to figure out an emotionally distressing situation for herself. My 50 male mother recently passed away, and my brother, 48 male, and I inherited her house worth about $1.5 million. My brother has asked if I could give up my share of the inheritance so he could own and live in the house. His reasoning is that I'm already well off and already own and paid off my own house, and this was his only chance to own a home. I said no, but offered 4 alternative options. We can sell the house, he could buy me out, we could rent out the house and split the profits, or he could live there with his family for free as long as he could pay for the taxes and upkeep of the house. Now he's upset with me because he says I'm already set for life, while he's still struggling to make ends meet and doesn't own a house. Here's some additional context. We grew up in a poor, but very loving family. My parents worked really hard to provide for us and really stressed pursuing college to free ourselves from poverty. I worked hard, took loans, went to college, got a good-paying job, got married, and had kids. My brother graduated college but didn't end up pursuing his field and job hopped from one minimum wage job to the next. He's married now and has a toddler. I feel bad for his situation, but I feel like I'm being punished for my success. I worked hard to get where I am today. I love my brother and want what's best for him and his family, but my share of the inheritance would still be a lot of money. Am I being greedy, and am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He can't buy a house with $750,000? You offered reasonable alternatives. No, you shouldn't give up the inheritance just because you have been successful, and your mother wanted you to have half the house. Not the a-hole. You offered him several reasonable, more than in some cases, alternatives, and he rejected them. Even in super expensive Orange County, California, $750,000 is enough money to buy a home. Your brother is being childish. He can live there for free and pay for the upkeep and taxes and isn't willing to? More likely isn't able to. I suspect your brother wants you to sign it over to him so that he can sell it and keep all of the profits. Based on what you've said, I don't think he can afford the house, even if you were to hand it over to him, not the a-hole.